Welcome to Life and Liberty Radio with David Householder. I'm Josh Jose, and together, you and I are taking another step toward freedom, both spiritual and political. So get comfortable, breathe in, and ignite your imagination. Envision a society that is spiritually deep and truly free. It's easy if you try.
Breaking news. The United States has decided to arm Syrian rebels. Now, you may not know exactly where Syria is. Syria is near Israel. Syria is an ally of Russia. Russia has a naval base there on the Mediterranean Sea, and they've been embroiled in a civil war for quite some time. And my simple question is, who decided this? Who decided this? Well, the truth is, Barack Obama said there's a red line here, and if Syria crosses this red line, the Syrian regime, which is trying to stay in power with a guy named Assad, and uses chemical weapons, then we're going to use force against them. A red line. Well, the truth is, a red line is totally and completely unconstitutional because it leaves you and me out of the decision. War is important. We need consensus to go to war. And last I checked, about 12% of the American public wants to get involved in Syria. So there must be big forces trying to make us go there. We're going to talk about why this is unconstitutional. But first, I'd like to talk about the fact that this evidence isn't all that convincing. It reminds me of the evidence we had. Remember Colin Powell saying this chemical weapon stuff here at the UN, and mass destruction and all of that. It just sounds so similar to that. We want really, really, really good proof before we go do something like this. And even if we had proof, it may not be, and I don't think it is, the right decision to go there and do anything. Russia and Israel both claim that the people who are fighting against the regime, the rebels that we're supposed to be arming, were also using chemical weapons. So which of the thugs are you going to back? This is the problem with the Middle East. We continue to pick really bad sides. And who's on the right side here? How can we decide who to back? Well, the truth is we don't have good choices. There aren't really any good guys in the Syria fight, except perhaps the Christians, who are getting beat up by everybody, and we need to protect them. But Assad is the one who has been protecting them. The rebels are the ones who want to get rid of the Christians. So why are we backing them? Who are these rebels? These rebels tend to be aligned with Saudi Arabia. They tend to be Salafists, which means extreme Islamists. These are people who want to bring down the Syrian regime, which is sort of connected with Iran and with Russia. And so there's this tug of war between Sunni and Shiite Muslims in the Middle East, and the more extreme factions actually shoot at each other. And when we choose sides, it gets really, really strange. And the truth is, when you look at the Middle East, we generally have a choice. We have a choice between some big dictator-type guys, some strongman like Assad or Mubarak, or Gaddafi, or Saddam Hussein, a big, strong guy who runs places and keeps order, or we have more extremist types who want to impose an Islamist state. Neither one of those are worth our support. Neither one of those sides are sides we should be backing, because neither one is good. They really aren't. They're not. Neither one. Just because they're coming against these authoritarian regimes doesn't mean they're like the founding fathers of our country wanting to put together a liberal democracy. That's not even close to anything in their minds. And so when we get involved in these things, we cause nothing but trouble. And you think we would learn, but you can't fix stupid. We continue to do this. We continue to back thugs. We forget that people like Khomeini were sent by the United States to help topple a regime in Iran back in the 50s. And we forget that we have Osama bin Laden, who was on our payroll for the longest time. We made him a billionaire, for goodness sake. And then he turned against us. We back thugs. Like Saddam Hussein also was our ally, and we armed him, and then they turn against us. Why? Because they're thugs. Why do we get involved in these fights? It makes no sense. We don't understand the geography. We don't understand the sociology. We don't understand the religious situation over there. It's not our fight. There's no good sides to choose. And the truth is, this is also kind of a wag the dog thing. How many scandals is the current administration involved in? And isn't it convenient to go to war during a time like that? We call that wagging the dog. Wagging the dog. And the truth is also, there's no such place as Syria. There's no such thing as a Syrian. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire was broken up by the Allies, especially France and Britain, and they made up countries which didn't exist, probably drinking too much champagne and drawing lines on the map, Iraq and Syria among them. There's no such thing. I remember the Bushes, the president said, the Iraqi people this and the Iraqi people. There's no such thing as an Iraqi person. There's Shiites, there's Sunnis, there's Kurds, and they don't get along very well. Don't even share each other's culture and often each other's language. We have the same situation in Syria, except more complicated. There's like 11 major tribal groups in Syria. Nobody thinks of himself or herself as a Syrian. This was imposed on this area by the French after World War I, and it really never worked, just like there's no such thing as a Lebanese person, for goodness sake. These are artificial nations imposed by imperial powers, and now we're going to go back and try to fix the mess we made. And we didn't understand it then, and we understand it worse now. So there's no such thing as a Syrian. And these people are fighting it out because they've got issues, much like we had in our Civil War. Can you imagine jumping in at Gettysburg, the foreign powers, the European powers, and trying to tip the battle in favor of the South or the North? They had no business being here. When you have an internal fight, as hard as it sounds, you have to let the people fight it out because it's their fight. It's their struggle. They need to figure these things out, and they're experts in it, and we are not. So why would we arm Islamists in Syria? And we really kind of just want to take guns away from our own citizens. That's a whole nother issue. But let me read you what the Constitution says. I started with, who decided this? Who decided that we would go to war? Well, it's supposed to be you and me, and it's supposed to be you and me, and we're supposed to decide through Congress. And Congress, it says here that Congress has the right to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations, to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules considering captures on land and water, to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years, because the Founding Fathers didn't want a standing army, because they figured a standing army would naturally bring us into war. Hey, it's there, it needs to eat, needs to do what it does, and eventually it's going to want to go to war, to provide and maintain a navy, to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces, to provide for calling forth the militia. The militia. Whatever happened to the militia? To execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. To provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States. In other words, the militia is not the U.S. Army, but could be employed by the service of the United States, reserving to the states, respectively, the appointment of officers, the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. In other words, the states, the Constitution says, and the Constitution hasn't been repealed, that the states are to train the militia in accordance with the rules from the government and the federal government, and so that we can fight together if we need to. But this is reserved for the states. The officers should be appointed by the states. So what happened to that? Well, we just ignore it. We just skateboard it. And we're going to war in Syria, and we're not declaring it. We haven't declared war since 1941 against Japan. Help me with that. So we have two choices here. We can either follow the Constitution or just repeal it, because pretending like we follow it and not following it is just wrong. The Founding Fathers didn't want us to be an interventionist nation. I'm not talking about isolationism here. We need to be involved all around the world in all kinds of things. We need to mix it up and hang out with people and trade with everybody. But some fights are not our fight, and we need to let other people fight out their fights. And this is a no-win situation. We're picking the wrong side, and if we pick the other side, it would be the wrong side for the wrong reasons, to distract the American public from the scandals, which is wagging the dog, with 12% of the American people backing and no congressional declaration of war. This is what you call unconstitutional. This is what you call nuts. This is how we got involved in Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. But you can't fix stupid.
So put some sunshine and water on these fresh ideas and keep taking that next step toward freedom. Join us every weekday for the latest life and liberty ideas. The views expressed on this program are purely those of the presenter, and not necessarily those of the advertisers or organizations or persons with which the presenter has a relationship. Please click on the Amazon banner at the top of the Life and Liberty page, and consider doing all your online shopping through this portal. See you tomorrow.